In this video, we're going to create a beautiful melody using an easy fingerpicking pattern. This is an outside-inside pattern, which means we're going to alternate between the two outside strings and the two inside strings. Now I think you'll find that the pattern is fairly simple and straightforward, and what takes some practice is coordinating the chord changes to go along with the pattern. We're going to start off with the demos or play-alongs, so you can hear how this melody sounds on both low G and high G tuning at a slower and faster tempo on each instrument, and then we'll move into our lesson. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Five, 6, 7, 8. So now that you've heard this melody 4 different ways, let's take a close look at the pattern and how to apply it to the chord progression, along with tips on the chord shapes and the chord changes. I'm going to use low G tuning for this next section, and if you're playing with high G tuning, then please follow along, as the instruction is exactly the same. And then I'll include a short high G section at the end of this lesson so that you can hear the rhythm at a slow tempo with the high G. Let's take a look at our outside-inside fingerpicking pattern at a slow tempo on all open strings. We're starting with the 2 outside strings. First playing the 4th string with our thumb, then the 1st string with our middle finger, and then we play the 2 inside strings, going to the 3rd string with our thumb, and then we finish on the 2nd string with our index finger. Here's how it looks to pick this pattern from a side view. I like to pick this pattern using these 3 fingers because I like to alternate between the 4th string and the 3rd string using my thumb. However, if you would like to add your ring finger into the mix, then you can use your thumb on the 4th string, index finger on the 3rd string, middle finger on the 2nd string, and ring finger on the 1st string. So here's how this would look, adding your ring finger. You can try it both ways and see what's most comfortable to you. Now, as our pattern consists of 4 notes, we're going to count it as 2 full beats. 1 and 2 and. Now let's apply this pattern to our chord progression. We're going to play our pattern 2 times on each chord, except for the final chord in the progression. So we start on G major 7. For this chord, we have our ring finger, middle finger, and index finger on the 2nd fret of strings 1, 2, and 3. So here we're going to pick our pattern twice. And then we go to E minor 7, simply by lifting up our middle finger, keeping our index finger and ring finger in place. So here we'll play our pattern twice on E minor 7. And then we go back and forth one more time between G major 7 and E minor 7, playing our pattern twice on each chord. As we move back and forth between G major 7 and E minor 7, we want the notes on the 2nd string to last as long as possible. And because the 2nd string is where we change between these 2 chords, it's easy to cut these notes on the 2nd string short or to create unwanted hammer-ons. After we play our 2nd pattern on G major 7, if we immediately lift up our middle finger to go to E minor 7, here's what happens. We've just cut short the F-sharp note on the 2nd string. And similarly, after we play our 2nd pattern on E minor 7, if we immediately place our middle finger back down to go to G major 7, here's what happens. We've just created an unwanted hammer-on. So what we want to do is change chords on the 2nd beat of the pattern after we've played the 4th and 1st string. So moving from G major 7 to E minor 7, we'll play the first half of the pattern, strings 4 and 1, and then we'll lift up our middle finger to complete the pattern on E minor 7. Similarly, starting on E minor 7, we'll play the first half of the pattern, and then we'll place our middle finger back down to complete the pattern on G major 7. Next, I'll play through line 1 at a slow tempo, counting out the rhythm, so you can see exactly where the chord changes happen. Starting on G major 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you'd like to download a PDF of the lesson materials for this video, it's available on Patreon, along with my technique and practice book and my songbooks. You'll find the link down below in the video description. Your support here on YouTube and on Patreon enable me to focus full-time on my channel, creating new arrangements and tutorials for you. So if you're enjoying my lessons, I would love it if you leave me a comment below, and please give this video a thumbs up. And now we move into line 2, which is a bit easier. So from our E minor 7 chord at the end of line 1, we'll keep our ring finger in place on the 2nd fret of the 1st string for our C major 7 chord. Here we're going to play 2 patterns on C major 7, and then we'll place down our pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string to play our C chord. Here we're going to play 2 patterns on C, and I've kept my ring finger in place because after C, we go right back to C major 7 for 2 more patterns, and then back to C again for 2 more patterns to complete line 2. So here's how line 2 sounds at a slow tempo, counting out the rhythm, starting on C major 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now moving from line 2 into line 3, we're going to keep our ring finger in place, rotate our hand to go back to our G major 7 chord, and line 3 is played the exact same way as line 1. And next we start line 4 with an A minor 7 no 5 chord. So we're going to play 2 patterns on this chord with our index finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string and ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And then we're going to place our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string, keeping our index finger in place to form a Hawaiian version of D7. So here we'll play 2 patterns. And then we go back to A minor 7, no 5, by placing down our ring finger on the 3rd fret, and we can keep our middle finger in place because we are going to come back to D7 again. So 2 patterns on A minor 7, no 5, and then 2 patterns on D7 to complete line 4. For line 4, going back and forth between A minor 7, no 5 and D7, here the chord changes happen on the 2nd string, just like they did going back and forth between G major 7 and E minor 7 in lines 1 and 3. So once again here in line 4, we want to make sure that our 2nd string rings out as long as possible, and that we don't cut short the note or create unwanted hammer-ons by changing too quickly between our 2nd and 3rd frets. So just like in lines 1 and 3, we want to change chords on the 2nd beat of the pattern. So going from A minor 7, no 5, to D7, we're going to start the first half of the pattern playing strings 4 and 1 before we switch chords to D7. And then we'll complete the pattern playing strings 3 and 2. Similarly, going from D7 to A minor 7, no 5, we're going to stay on D7, picking strings 4 and 1 before we place our ring finger down to complete the A minor 7, no 5 chord to play strings 3 and 2. Now I'll play through line 4 at a slow tempo, counting out the rhythm, so you can see exactly where the chord changes happen, playing 2 patterns on each chord. starting on A minor 7, no 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now you can repeat lines 1 through 4 as many times as you would like to cycle through this beautiful chord progression. And when you're ready to end it, then you can move into lines 5 and 6. Now line 5 is played the exact same way as lines 1 and 3. And for line 6, we're going to start with 2 patterns on G major 7, then 2 patterns on E minor 7, and then for our final G major 7 chord, we can either pick all 4 strings at once using our thumb, index, middle, and ring fingers, or we can pick strings 4 down to 1. The final G major 7 chord is held for 4 beats, or the equivalent of 2 patterns. So here's how we count line 6, starting on G major 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. For those of you playing with high G tuning, you can follow all of the instruction from the first part of this video for low G tuning. But in this part of the lesson, I want you to be able to hear how the chord changes and the patterns sound with a high G at a slow tempo. So here's how our pattern sounds with high G tuning on all open strings. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Starting in line 1, we'll go back and forth twice between G major 7 and E minor 7, playing our pattern twice on each chord. So here's how line 1 sounds at a slow tempo, counting out the rhythm, starting on G major 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And now line 2, going from C major 7 to C, will sound like this, with 2 patterns on each chord. At a slow tempo, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Line 3 is played the exact same way as line 1. So let's move into line 4, going from A minor 7, no 5, to D7, our Hawaiian version of D7. So here's how we count line 4 at a slow tempo. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now line 5 is played the same way as lines 1 and 3. And for line 6, we'll play 2 patterns on G major 7, 2 patterns on E minor 7, and then on our final G major 7 chord, we can either pick all 4 strings together, or we can pick strings 4 down to 1. So here's how we count line 6, starting on G major 7. For more of my fingerpicking tutorials, see this playlist here. Have fun practicing, and thanks for watching.